initiate chaos theory guarantees that we'll play like lightning shots, sounding like thunder. For every time in the face that it hits us, we're faster. Well, they should know by now. They see the world keeps trying to shake us. It only waits us. The pendulum swings. The pendulum swings. It's in a beautiful darkness. Only another. It's full steam ahead. Full steam ahead. All about the Petty Express. Misdirected from the start. It's a runaway train. I come a freight train. I come a freight train. In a beautiful darkness, the Petty Express. In a beautiful darkness.
Hey guys, it's Mo, your conductress on the Petty Express. We are back for Timu, Legal Barbie, Lori shenanigans. It looks like the rest of the day is going to be full of investigators, both from the Social Security Administration, but also life insurance, and then the actual police detectives who were probably lead in this case, meaning that we're probably coming towards the end of the state's case. Generally, they wrap up with either the medical examiner or kind of the lead detective bringing all the pieces of the case together. So it will be interesting. Good morning, Wolfram and Deviance Moore and Dan Davis and Denise Sells. Welcome, welcome. So let's get back on this. Now, this particular gentleman is with the inspector or the sort of investigative arm of the Social Security Administration. And it already looks like Lori's in a bit of heat because I'm guessing, being the non-law abiding chick that she is and money grubbing, soul sucking harpy that she also is, she did not let the Social Security Administration know that she was remarried and that the children weren't there. I mean, among many things.
Mentions the back pay from the date of death for Charles up until that date of the letter.
Okay. So monthly, the 1951, and then a back pay of $3,902?
Correct.
Okay. Exhibit 2014. When Ms. Vallow went in on August 12th, would that be the same, during that meeting, would they have been questioning her with regards to both JJ as well as her survivor benefits?
Yes.
So this letter is from that same meeting.
Yes.
In 214 again, this one we see that it's only addressed to Lori Vallow, but at the same 1658 East Sherry Street in Santan Valley.
Yes.
And how much money was Ms. Vallow set to receive as a result of the death of Charles Vallow?
It would be $19.51 per month.
Is that the same as what JJ was getting?
Yes, it'd be mirroring the same amount that JJ was receiving. Yes, correct.
So basically she's getting about $4,000 a month?
Approximately, yes.
Now, in these letters and the other documentation you reviewed, we see her as Lori N. Vallow, correct?
Yes.
In your investigation, did you ever learn whether or not Lori N. Vallow ever remarried and became Lori N. Daybell?
Yes.
Can you tell us in your investigation what the date of that marriage was when Lori N. Vallow became Lori N. Daybell?
November 5th, 2019.
And who did Lori Vallow marry?
Chad Daybell.
No other questions for this witness, Your Honor?
Cross.
Mr. Sari, the Social Security, as a surviving spouse, can you get benefits if you didn't have any children?
I believe so, correct? Yes.
Okay, so if you've been married for longer than 10 years, you get spousal surviving benefits. Is that correct?
There are some rules for that. I believe that is correct, I believe, yes.
Surviving is
And
not a
so,
word, Lori.
If I had been married to my husband for 10 years and his previous wife had been married to my husband for over 10 years, she would also get that surviving spouse benefit?
What's your question again? Who's the she part? I'm trying to follow that part.
Okay, just a previous person who has been married to my husband previous to me for more than 10 years. I mean, that's what Social Security does, right?
I'm not sure. What is your question? I'm trying to.
Okay, sorry. So if there were two spouses to a deceased husband consecutively, and they were both each married for over 10 years to that same husband, they would both receive a spousal benefit or could apply for and receive that spousal benefit. Is that correct?
That's one issue. I have to obviously I'm not aware of all those policies for that kind of issu, so I can't really answer yes or no to that question.
Okay. So if it was explained to me when I was at the Social Security office that I could receive that.
Hold on. I'm going to sustain the objection.
Okay. But it is possible. You're just not aware of it. Is that correct?
I would have to ask an expert in our agency for administrative rules on that.
Okay. And what is your expertise at Social Security?
I'm a special agent.
And so you just investigate. Is that correct?
Investigate crimes of fraud, waste, and abuse in Social Security, correct?
You investigate fraud. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. But you're not really privy to what an agent might be telling a person as they come in to get Social Security. Is that correct?
What they tell an agent, an employee, or what is your question again?
Yes. So you're not really privy to what the employees are telling the regular people that come in to the Social Security office.
I'm not there for those appointments, correct?
So you don't really understand what all benefits can be given?
We with OIG investigate crimes of fraud, waste, and abuse. So we are the experts for that. And we also have experts internally in Social Security we look to for guidance on internal rules that are more complex, if that kind of helps you out.
Okay. So you had said something about mother in care benefits. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
You'd have to be a mother and not a monster. Also, I don't think that you can just keep your husband's. I do believe you have to be currently married to your spouse in order to get spousal benefits. I could be really wrong, but Lori, he's here looking at the law, not how you could have bilked more money out of the Social Security Administration.
and it's the same dollar amount as the child in care benefits. Is that correct?
There's two benefits for the child in care and also for JJ. They were the mirroring same amount, correct?
But wouldn't the mother in care benefits be for the child?
It would be if the individual had the child in their care, correct?
Right. So, but a spousal benefit, if you've been married for over 10 years and you didn't have any children, you would still be entitled to that. Isn't that correct?
My understanding is that you have to be a certain age to get that benefit, to be a certain age to apply for that. In the situation here, due to the decedent Charles dying, there was a benefit for the child only that was receiving, as well as child in care. So only two benefits were received for the child, also child in care as well.
Basically, Lori, you weren't old enough to get the spousal support benefit. You were getting support to be a good mother. And that money is to go more towards helping assist you raise, furnish, clothe, and feed the children. You absolute numpty.
So my question is, how is that determined by the employee? Like if it's spousal benefit or if it's a mother in care benefit?
Ma'am, this is not the customer service line. He is here because you crimed. He doesn't know how they fill out the TPS report. So, excuse me, but I couldn't get a hold of customer service, and sometimes it does that hablad no inglés thing, and I don't like that. So while I have you on the stand, this person was mean to me. You do realize this is a murder trial, right, Lori? Like the clanging monkey and the symphony of heavenly Lori is great. Hasn't precluded you from the fact that this is in fact your own trial and you are on trial for kind of the most serious crime.
It'd be up to the applicant to apply for the benefits.
So if you applied for the spousal benefit and they gave you the mother in care benefit instead, how would you know the difference? You just know that that was the monthly amount you were getting?
You would receive a letter in the mail. You also would be at the appointment very clearly told what you were applying for. It should not be any confusion about what you're applying for at that appointment.
Okay, so if you were told that you were getting the spousal benefit,
Yeah, it's sustained.
if an employee told a recipient that they were getting a spousal benefit,
I'll allow him to answer that hypothetical if he knows.
if an employee were to tell someone they were getting a spousal benefit and they received a letter in the mail saying it was a mother in care benefit, should they call the Social Security office and clear that up?
It would be up to
Sure, Jan, if you would like to call right now and explain that you thought you were going to get a spousal benefit. Now, what this has to do with the price of tea in China, considering you've been, adjudicated guilty of unaliving all said children in the mother and child benefit, I really could give a flying rat's ass if they told you the wrong thing in the office. And thank you, Kathy Mitchell or Michelle. Sorry, for being a member for 5 months. Thank you and good morning to the Church of Mo and good morning back to you. Sorry, it is raining and Mr. Mo keeps asking me questions like, have you seen the 2014 taxes? And that would be a no, I have not seen them. But I also didn't know they were missing. So
to the applicant, if they receive a letter in the mail, to correct, contact Social Security and say, hey, this is the wrong benefit I'm receiving. So it would be up to the applicant to let us know, let Social Security know the benefit is not correct.
So if the employee put it in as something other than they told the recipient, then it would just be up to the recipient to correct that. Is that correct?
Social Security goes off of information that's provided to the agency by the applicant. That makes sense. It's up to the applicant to be truthful and provide the right information to the agency.
So do you have a copy of my application for either of these benefits?
I'd have to ask the prosecutor for that information.
Okay. Have you ever seen one to your knowledge that you remember?
Yes.
You've seen my applications?
Yes, I have.
And were they for mother in care?
It was for survivors for JJ as well as for mother child in care as well.
So the application that I filled out was not for.
get this through your head, Lori. You have to be a certain age to get spousal benefits from the Social Security Administration. This man has told you this at least 15 times. Now you're going to continue to argue like you did with the efficacy of tits on a bull with the bamboo Kevlar shirt. So why don't you save us all the headache and the migraine and just continue to get through your head that you were actually getting money to be a good mother to JJ. And well, I mean, Tylee included in that, but for JJ specifically. So again, I don't know how it is so incredibly difficult for you to understand context clues.
For spousal benefit. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
I'm sorry.
he can answer if he knows, if he recalls the answer.
Repeat the question, please.
I'm saying, so of the records that you saw, I did not have a spousal survivor benefit application.
The records I saw were an application for survivors benefits for JJ as well as for child in care as well. Two different benefits that you were receiving.
Okay, so is there an application for spousal benefit?
I'm only aware of the two benefits you were receiving, which was for JJ and for mother child in care.
So it could have been a mix-up of the employee. Is that what you're saying?
They would have been relying on information you would provide at that application appointment August 12, 2019.
And this is a filled out form application? Is that what you're saying? It's not just something you verbally give to the employee?
I believe you could do it online ahead of time, but you were present, I believe, on August 12th at the office to go through line by line, I believe, with that application.
So if I thought I was getting, if a person,
Lori, let me break this down without trying not to use curse words. But I had an in-depth and long Socratic discussion with my youngest, most feral last night, how growing up to become a dinosaur might not be a marketable skill. And he had better, more cogent points in his argument that, yes, what if Jurassic Park makes dinosaurs and then they need a real life person to voice and speak their language? He made better points than you are making currently. I don't know, but I feel like there should be a mercy rule in some of these pro se questions when they are at the point of gross stupidity, we can find them. That being said, youngest, most feral made more cogent points. Lori, Seriously.
So in your investigation of this fraud, you have seen all of my applications, is that correct?
I reviewed any and all documents that we have in relation to JJ as well as to you receiving benefits on his behalf, correct?
And you do not recall seeing any spousal surviving benefit application, is that correct?
All that I recall seeing was once again the 2 applications, one for mother, child, and care and one for JJ as well.
And isn't that a redundant benefit?
Which benefit?
You're redundant. No, it goes for you being the guardian. Yes, it's somewhat redundant, but oh my God. What you are getting is, again, to be able to add and, in case that one child benefit isn't enough and you have the sole care and custody, it is somewhat like the, having a dual income family that you had when you were married. Again, I don't know how the Social Security people sit down and explain all of this to you. I was not eligible for spousal benefits because I was too young. I was eligible as, mother and child care status for benefits. It's not that hard.
The mother in child care and the child in care, isn't that that's basically the same thing?
JJ had a benefit for himself solely, then a second one to be mother, child, and care. Does that
To
make-
take care of the child.
Correct. The child has to be under your care, custody, and
We
control.
got it,
During that time
finally.
period, correct.
Thank Jesus.
So when you're receiving these Social Security benefits, they want them to be for the things that you stated previously, right?
I gave a few examples, but it is for the benefit of the child, correct?
Right. And it's supposed to be spent on food and clothes, and it can be spent on an electric bill, and it can be spent on rent. They want you to utilize that money on a monthly basis. Is that correct?
Correct. Or you could also conserve it for the child as well, but that is correct.
And that they can do an audit any time of your account to make sure that you're spending it on those correct things. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
And they want it to be spent every month, and you can't really save it for college. Is that correct?
No.
So if an employee told that to a recipient, that would be incorrect?
Lori, I don't know what the voices inside your head said, but I was specifically told that you could save it and there would be no penalty. Now, each one of, your localities is going to have an amount that you can put in sort of a college savings or things like that before all tax and that kind of stuff. But Lori, just because you remember something incorrectly doesn't mean that an employee told you it.
The benefit is for the child. The money can be saved or spent on the child.
So if a recipient was told that all the money has to be spent every month on the care for the child and could not be saved for college because it is Social Security,
I'd like to take things that never happened for 800, Alex. What is everything Lori's saying?
The objection sustained for, it's straying into you testifying, ma'am.
Who thunk?
so it is not your understanding that that benefit has to be spent every month. Is that correct?
Sustained.
So you are not aware of that?
Sustained.
Can I have a moment to confer?
Go ahead.
Lori, I don't know if a moment's going to help you find a brain. Maybe you should go to the Wizard of Oz.
Mr. Sauer, you weren't present at the interview with me and the employee at the Social Security office on August 12th, were you?
I was not.
So you do not really know what was said. Is that correct?
Correct.
So you just saw the applications in the later time?
Yes.
What time about when you started investigating this fraud?
In about January 2020.
And who is your superior?
Oh, my tiny baby Jesus, she did not. Did we really get I'd like to speak to your manager? Is she really trying to speak to his manager? This is epic. This heifer misremembers and doesn't understand basic instructions given to her about what benefits she received, but she wants to call in his manager. Audacity must be on clearance when she transmugrified.
Is your question who my boss is, or
Yeah.
I have a special agent in charge who's in charge, who's my immediate boss? Yeah.
Sustained.
Who assigned my case to you? That's my question.
Jesus.
It's not really relevant, but you can answer, sir.
Are you asking for the name, or what are you looking for as far as your question?
The name would be fine.
At the time, it was special agent in charge, Joe Rogers. He's now retired.
And he was your direct,
He was my ASAC at the time.
and that came to you in January of 2020?
Yes, correct.
Thank you. No more questions.
All right, redirect.
The fact that Lori's stupid really doesn't affect anything, right? Right.
August
And
12th
done.
of 2019, when Ms. Vallow went to Social Security and had a meeting, what is the point of that meeting?
The point of that is for an applicant to come into Social Security, apply for benefits, and then have Social Security determine if they're eligible or not for those benefits.
You have up with you a paper that was provided to you earlier to review. After that meeting, was a letter sent to Mrs. Vallow relating to the answer she gave and the benefits she was requesting?
Yes,
Is that what you were looking at when you were looking at some of the information that she had provided?
yes.
So in that letter that was sent to Ms. Vallow, what address was that sent to?
It would be the 1658 East Sherry Street in Santan Valley, Arizona.
And so that letter covers the answer she gave that we previously discussed of when she married Charles Vallow, for instance,
Correct.
children that they had,
Yes,
that they were still living together,
yes,
and then discussed what she would be applying for.
yes.
When you, in your understanding and having investigated these crimes, does Social Security just start deciding for people what benefits they feel they might want? Do they make decisions for them? Hey,
No.
you look like you might want these benefits.
Not at all, no.
So regardless of whether any of us understand why Social Security would give benefits for a child and for the mother of the child if they're still married to the spouse, that is what you can get?
They would ask the applicant what they are applying for, correct, as far as for that benefit.
So when a couple is married and they have a child together and one of those spouses dies, the other spouse may be entitled to benefits for the child. Is that correct?
Yes,
As well as benefits for them as the mother of that child.
yes,
So in addition to the initial letter after that August 12th meeting, then Ms. Vallow was sent the second two letters, Exhibits 213 and 214, that showed her how much she was ultimately awarded.
correct.
One of them, one letter was sent to her specifically for JJ,
Yes,
and the other letter was sent to her specifically for herself as the mother in care of JJ.
yes,
And that's the one where we saw it was her name for JJ.
yes.
In your investigation, you did not see any surviving spousal benefits.
I did not.
All you saw in looking through reams of documents was that Mrs. Vallow was receiving those two benefits that we've discussed.
Correct.
You were asked about when you began investigating this case, correct?
Yes,
And would those benefits for Lori Vallow have terminated when she became Lori Daybell?
yes. Upon a remarriage, that mother-child care benefit would immediately cease.
But the benefits for JJ would have continued.
Correct.
I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Are there any questions for this witness from the jury? I see at least one coming down.
I love the jury questions. Come on. These must have been fairly interesting questions. They are having to do a bit of discussion, or they're trying to explain to Lori how English functions. She is pro se. She actually fired her legal defense team. Thus far, I have seen no reason that she did other than to get more attention.
Sure.
They were, yes.
I have a couple questions for you, sir. Were payments to Lori Vallow stopped after your investigation?
They were, yes.
And during your investigation, do you know if Lori Vallow notified Social Security of her new marriage?
She did not.
Based on those questions, does the defendant have any follow-up for this witness?
Can I?
Do you have any follow-up?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Lord.
Mr. Sari, you said that I did not notify Social Security of my marriage
Correct?
that you know of.
To my knowledge, you have not? No.
What? Did you send a pigeon a smoke signal? Was there a DDoS attack in your email? Did you send a proton mail and they thought it must surely be spam or prawn? Or did you tell this one, enigmatic, imaginary employee? Really?
Okay. So you don't know if in Hawaii I was at the Social Security office and notified them?
Sustain. It's, again,
But you're-
testifying.
So would you have all of the information from every office in that regard?
From our review of the records, there is no notification at all of you ever notifying Social Security of that marriage.
Of the records that you had access to, is that correct?
From our review of the Social Security databases, which would encompass notifications, we have seen 0 notifications.
And what would you have to do to put in a notification?
An employee would have to go on the record and make a change or make a report of contact, that sort of thing.
And so that would go into a major database and then it would be available to you as well?
We would have access to view and see if there was any changes made. There were no changes made after August 2019 on your behalf.
So none were made in November, that to your knowledge?
There were none made.
Lori, it's every GD state. I know that, Hawaii, sometimes we forget, but, we actually do have all of this stuff. We have technology. I don't understand how it works, but it does.
And is that something that you would be made privy to
Yes.
in the course of your investigation?
Yes.
So it's not.
Yes, Jem. Sadly, they found the children, and it is part of the reason that Chad Dorkbell has capital punishment sentence. They were found buried in kind of the pet cemetery on Chad Daybell's property. JJ looked like he'd been asphyxiated with a plastic bag. And unfortunately for Tylee, it looked like she had been shot, dismembered, and burned. Just tragic and terrifying. And the end that no child should face, especially from their mother.
Not something that you could have dismissed?
I did not miss it, correct?
Okay.
Redirect.
Thank you. So, to be clear, does Social Security use computer systems to keep all this data?
They do.
You don't just have pieces of paper lying around that maybe you missed?
Correct.
So whenever anything is updated anywhere in the country, it's put into a database that you were able to access.
Yes.
And you did access it.
Yes.
And you reviewed everything that was in there.
Yes.
And you at no point saw any information to indicate that any changes were ever made to those benefits after August of 2019.
Correct.
And Social Security was not advised that Ms. Vallow had been married in November of 2019.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, sir, you can step down. Do you have another witness we can start? I do. Go ahead. Clerk will swear you in. You know, walk around the support reporter, have a seat to my left.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Robin Smith Scott.
I'm going to have you move up and pull down that mic so we can hear you a little better. Thank you. Where do you work?
I work at Banner Life Insurance Company,
How long have you worked there?
13 years.
What let me start with what does Banner Life Insurance do?
We are strictly a life insurance company. Customers can purchase life insurance policies.
And what do you do for Banner Life Insurance?
I work in the claims department as a claims representative. I process death claims.
Have you previously had to testify before about a payout of a policy?
Yes.
I'm going to start by asking some real general questions so we understand sort of life insurance. How does someone go about getting life insurance?
They could go through an agent. More recent years, you can apply online. There's information, you fill out an application, basic information regarding yourself. There could be some financial questions, health questions.
Okay. And you talked about an agent. What is an agent in there?
An agent is someone outside of our company, but they do business with us. They'll generally try to, find the best coverage and possibly best prices through, different companies for their clients.
When we're talking about life insurance, is there something called a policy owner?
Yes,
Can you tell us what that means?
pretty much exactly what it states. The policy owner owns the policy. They are the ones that basically can make any changes to the policy during the insured's lifetime, such as
This poor woman had to probably deal with just a rabid, feral Lori. I can only imagine the absolute. I would like to speak to the CEO and stakeholders of the company when she found out that Charles had changed her from being the beneficiary. I can only imagine the absolute unrelenting butthole that Lori was. Please say they recorded it.
they can relinquish ownership. So basically do an ownership change. They can change the beneficiary. They could decrease the value of the policy, if they chose to. They basically have complete control of the policy.
What's the difference between the policy owner and the insured?
So the insured, the policy covers that person's life in the event of that person's passing. The death benefit would be paid to the beneficiary, but the policy owner, if that person is different than is not the insured, again, the policy owner is the only one who can make changes to the policy.
So there are times where the policy owner and the insured are not the same.
Correct.
Can the policy owner and insured then be the same person? as
Yes.
well? Okay. And you said the policy owner is able to change the beneficiaries. What do we mean? What is a beneficiary?
The beneficiary is who will receive the death benefit in the event of the insured's death.
Okay. Can the insured, if they're not the policy owner, change the beneficiaries?
If they do not own the policy, they cannot make that change.
Can the beneficiary, if they aren't the policy owner, change anything about the life insurance policy?
No.
Can they, when someone passes away, who decides?
We were having pretty yucky, spotty weather, so we didn't lose power, but we had some flickers. So I have not yet seen her interview. And then I got sidetracked on the Brian Koberger plea deal that it kind of spaced until you just said something. So I need to watch it today. But good night, nurse. And thank goodness that YouTube has switched our names back to normal because y'all, I was having a little bit of like, I knew everyone in chat and now I don't know anyone. I can't figure out anyone's new name. So I'm glad they changed it back.
Who will actually be paid out? Who makes that decision of who will get the benefits paid out?
Well, as us claims examiners, we are going to review the policy, any documents that have been submitted through the lifetime of that policy, and we are going to determine and confirm who the primary beneficiary of the policy is.
So if someone obtains a life insurance policy and initially has one beneficiary, they can later file some new forms and create and change that to a different person?
Yes,
So you have to look through and make sure that you have the most recent beneficiary.
correct.
When someone calls in to make a claim on a life insurance, they say so-and-so passed away, is it customary for claims adjusters like yourself at Banner Life to sort of take that information and then look into all these things to make sure you know all of the different changes that may have occurred?
Yes, that is our standard process.
Does Banner Life Insurance keep copies of all of those policies as part of sort of your normal business practice?
Yes,
And does Banner Life Insurance keep copies of any modifications to a person's life insurance policy as part of the business practice?
yes.
If someone wants to modify who the beneficiary is, how do they go about doing that?
They would request a beneficiary change form. They can also access online if they are able to provide the proper security things through the website. But they would normally contact our customer service department, request a beneficiary change form, and complete it and return it. It is then reviewed by our customer service representatives to make sure it is completed appropriately. And if so, the change will be made. If not, then it's rejected.
Okay. Does a benefit
All I imagine is Lori henpecking, like, I bet the code is 1, 2, 3. Quick, did Charles have a dog? I can just imagine her wearing a fake mustache into the, life insurance and pretending to be a dude and or sending her brother, like, I'm Charles. I don't know if you know this. I can only imagine the absolute juvenile detective stuff that she would try to do in order to change this.
beneficiary modification form have to be notarized?
It depends on the amount of the policy. I believe anything that's 500,000 and above would need to be notarized.
So a policy for $1 million would require it to be notarized if you're changing the beneficiary?
Yes,
When people call in to the claims department requesting a payout, are those calls recorded?
yes, they are.
And is that done in the normal course of business with Banner Life Insurance?
Yes,
Are you familiar with the life insurance policy with your company for Charles Vallow?
yes, I am.
Are you familiar with how much that life insurance policy was for?
Yes,
How much was it for?
$1 million.
Prior to February 26th of 2019, who was the beneficiary of Charles Vallow's life insurance policy with Banner?
Prior to that date, Lori Vallow was the beneficiary.
So prior to February 26th of 2019, if Charles Vallow had passed away, would his wife Lori Vallow have gotten $1 million?
Correct.
In February of 2019, did Charles Vallow call Banner Life Insurance and request a beneficiary designation form?
He did.
Was one sent to him?
Yes, it was emailed to him.
And did Banner Life Insurance then receive a beneficiary designation form on February 26th of 2019 from Charles Vallow?
Yes,
Was that notarized?
yes,
And in that beneficiary designation form, did Charles Vallow change the beneficiary for his life insurance?
yes.
Who did he make the primary beneficiary for the life insurance?
His sister, Ethel K. Woodcock.
Your Honor, if I can have my paralegal approach with 215?
Mr. Mo was looking for some paperwork and left his phone in my room. So I'm glad I had it on mute because he's like, call my phone and so I can find it. But he has that wah, wah, like alarm sound. It scared the bejesus out of me. So I went to run him his phone since I found it, which is always a good thing.
Go ahead.
can't tell if I
Looking at
love her
215,
dress
do you
or hate
recognize that
it.
both as an affidavit authenticating the Banner Life Insurance documents,
Yes,
as well as the beneficiary designation form change from February 26th of 2019
yes,
that we were just discussing? In there, is there also a CD?
yes.
Does that contain a recording of your,
You know what, Northwest? I think I like it on her. I will say sometimes the fluttery sleeves make me self-conscious of my shoulders because I have bigger shoulders for a woman, or at least I feel like I do. So it always feels like I'm like bulking up for the Super Bowl. But I think it looks very nice on her. I realize it's the sleeves that I don't like for me.
call with Lori Vallow on July 15th of 2019?
We get a call.
Would you like to listen to that to verify that?
Yes, please. I do recognize the call.
Your Honor, the state will move to admit Exhibit 215.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
215 is admitted.
And if we could perhaps break at this point, since
Okay.
it's 12:01, otherwise it'll be playing for a
All
while.
right, let's take our lunch recess for the jury. Please remember the admonition will resume with the jury at 1:30.
And we get to speed right through them taking lunch. I do feel sorry for this woman because she had to deal with a feral and vindictive Lori. And this is the reason I don't work with the public, because I don't know that I would be able to maintain customer service and respect with Lori Vallow.
Daybell, CR 2021-001-704. State's present, the defendant and her team are present. The jury's not present. Who's the state calling this afternoon?
After we're finished with this witness, we have Jeff Moberg and then Cassandra Enclan.
Are you able to estimate yet when you think you're likely to conclude your case in chief?
I think likely Thursday.
All right. So we are moving at a fairly quick rate. Let's talk about these motions. One of them may be relevant this afternoon. The motion in limine regarding the questioning of police. Has the defendant have a chance to review that motion?
I did get a chance to review it, Your Honor.
Can you
but
pull the microphone down?
I did get a chance to review it. I did not get an opportunity to discuss it with my advisory team. We were able to have like a 30-second discussion right before we came in. So I would like to have an opportunity to do
Well,
that before I have to.
I think you said did you say Mr. Moffat's testifying this afternoon?
No.
Oh, you didn't say.
Moberg.
Moberg,
Yeah,
sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
Can I see the witnesses? Witnesses.
So theoretically, she could, if we get to cross of Detective Cassandra Enclan, that could become potentially an issue there. I don't know. I only put,
Well, I guess here's the issue is, I don't know to what extent you might have intended on crossing police officers about why you weren't arrested that day, or why your brother wasn't arrested that day, or why it took however long for charges to be submitted, or those types of things. Were those things you were planning on questioning anyone about?
Not exactly in those terms,
In what terms then?
asking those specific questions. Those were not on my list. However, it will become apparent that we were not arrested that day. So I don't foresee it being a problem. I'm not trying to
I think that the
go into
timing,
detail on that.
the timing of what was happening, how the investigation unfolded as far as timing, who was charged, who wasn't charged, would not be relevant. And I think that's what the state's motion is toward, because I think one of the first witnesses in the case, there was a question about why you or your brother weren't arrested that day, which again isn't relevant because if you go down that path, you could foreseeably open a door into, there's a lot of reasons why the investigation probably took quite a while that the jury doesn't really need to know about, nor is it relevant for them to determine what did or did.
Lori, he's trying to help you. He's trying to help you. I will say I have looked over her grounds for appeal for the Brandon Boudreaux case, and she does accuse the court of being biased and, against her. But this has been one of the more thoughtful judges. He takes time. He does try to keep her out of, briar patches as much as she wants to go in them. Only she's not Briar Rabbit. She's more of a moronic jackalope. So that's what Lori claims, because she was made when she was sick to continue to defense for herself. Now, that wouldn't have been a problem had she retained attorneys or the attorneys that were appointed for her. But yeah, Lori is just absolutely on a different plane of existence than the rest of us, and she must have a 4D chest reason that this is all going to work out splendidly.
Didn't happen on that particular day that you've been charged with. But I'm just kind of giving you a heads up that I don't think it's relevant. If you think it's relevant and we get to cross of this witness today, and you think you have a question regarding the timing, or who was or wasn't arrested, ask if we can take a break, all right?
Okay, sure.
Then we have, well, let me ask the defendant this. You've subpoenaed Robert Bobby Vallow, apparently was sent that subpoena or served that subpoena for a date that's already passed. Is this, again, someone that you believe has relevant information to your case?
No, Your Honor, that was just an oversight. That was a mix-up of clerical error. So we apologize to him or his family or any distress that caused. That was mixed up with an exhibit. His name was mixed up with an exhibit. It's very difficult on the phone at the jail when they cut me off every 20 minutes, and sometimes the notifications that get to my paralegal and my investigator do not come through clearly.
All right. The court will find that that subpoena, first of all, wasn't effective in the way that it was served out of state on an out-of-state witness. It sounds like the defendant's withdrawing that subpoena. Can we say that?
Absolutely, you can crush it.
So that one's withdrawn. Are there other?
Your Honor, I know you filed the state's email. I did have attachments of that on there. If those are part of the record, can we seal that as well? Because obviously it still has Bobby Vallow's information.
I've only sealed your email and I've sealed the actual 2 subpoenas that we discussed this morning.
Thank you.
Was there another, Mr. Boudreaux was served with a subpoena for this case, is that correct?
That is my understanding, Your Honor.
All right.
Those subpoenas were sent out from OPDS. We turned them into OPDS before you struck that witness, Your Honor. So
Okay, so that subpoena is effectively quashed, and as I said, that one would be filed under seal as well. Then we have, let me just check the time here, 1:23. The motion in limine regarding the testimony of the video observed by Janice Cox and Summer Shiflett. Have you had a chance to review that and discuss it?
I haven't had a chance to discuss that with advisory council, and I would like the opportunity to do that, Your Honor.
All right, that's fine. I don't think that's imminent for today.
No.
And then I think we can also take up the state's third motion to preclude later today or sometime tomorrow. Is your next, let's have the witness come back in. I think all our jurors are present, so we can start a few minutes early.
Also, be still my heart and call forth final form Jesus, a judge that actually respects that the jury has other stuff to do and make sure he is on time. In fact, checks his watch to make sure that they can start at a reasonable time. Oh, my dear Bob Ross.
G-Keep grove, thou glowing shrine of thirst traps, scams, and dollar signs. We chant in tones both grim and low, for virtue fled a long time ago. Kyrie eleison, Christe descendat, final form Jesus return in wrath. With six-pack glistening, sword in hand, he cometh swift to cleanse the land.
And yes, Kathy, she was actually taken into custody in Hawaii during the time where basically Nate Eaton found her in Hawaii and went down to ask questions. She was told to, by the court, to produce the children. Basically, all she had to do was produce proof that they were alive. And of course, she couldn't because, well, sadly, they were no longer on this earth. But because she failed to, present them, she was held in custody. Chad Dorkbell was out for, I think, several months until a search warrant was signed to look at all of his property, especially when they started going over electronic, text messages and things like that. And he had talked to Tammy around the last time that anyone had seen JJ and Tylee about shooting a raccoon and having a big brush fire. And that just struck the investigators as odd because he said that his encounter with the raccoon happened during the middle of the day. Raccoons are more nocturnal creatures. So I think there's more to it than that, but that was kind of the thing that pricked their spidey sense to go look at Chad Daybell's property. Now, I do believe Chad and Lori's trial were covered, but they were recordings only because Court TV kept focusing on Lori.
Let me ask my staff, they reprogram those headsets? All right, so we'll see.
Okay, I knew it was one or the other. I knew Lori, I believe within the first 2 days of the trial, her defense team complained about the fact that I don't remember if it was one single feed, but all of the kind of court streaming pool continued to try to focus on her table, her expressions, and they successfully argued that it was detrimental or, prejudicial to her. So it was recording only for Lori, and then Chad was televised.
All right, please be seated. The jury is present. You can continue with your direct examination.
Thank you. When we took our break for lunch, we had just admitted Exhibit 215, I believe. And inside this contained the beneficiary designation form that was filled out by Mr. Vallow. Oops, let me wait till we get our Elmo up. Correct, this is the form that we were discussing from the February 26th beneficiary change.
Yes, that's correct.
So we see that it's signed and notarized.
Correct.
And what this then shows is the primary beneficiary is now Ethel K. Woodcock.
Yes.
And then were there also contingent beneficiaries?
Yes, there were.
What are contingent beneficiaries?
Contingent beneficiaries are listed in the event the insured passes away and the primary beneficiary had predeceased the insured, meaning passing away before the insured. Since the primary beneficiary was no longer living, it would then drop to the contingent beneficiaries to receive the death benefit.
Okay. So if Kay Woodcock had not been around when when Charles passed, then it would have gone to Nicholas Charles Vallow and Zachary Chase Vallow.
That's correct.
When a primary beneficiary or contingent beneficiary is removed from someone's life insurance policy, does Banner Life Insurance call that person up and let them know, hey, just letting you know you're not the primary beneficiary
No,
anymore?
no.
Why not?
They're not the policy owner, so they would not be entitled to that information.
So again, the policy owner is the person who can do whatever they want with the policy.
Correct.
On July 15th of 2019, did Lori N. Vallow call Banner Life Insurance to make a death claim?
Yes.
And was that call recorded?
Yes, it was.
And is that the audio that you listened to before we took our break for lunch?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, if I may publish this? And again, that's just something that's the normal course of business that Banner Life records all of those people.
All of our calls are recorded, yes.
Claims Department, this is Robin. May I have the policy number? Sure. Claim? Yes. Okay, one moment, please. May I have the name of the insured? L. Charles Vallow. And who am I speaking with? This is Lori Vallow. And your relationship to the insured? He's my husband. Okay, one moment.
Is he though?
Okay, ma'am, I'm just going to need to ask you a few questions so that I can open the claim, and then I can go over the claim procedure with you and answer any questions that you may have afterwards. That would be great. Okay, first of all, may I have your daytime phone number, please? Sure, it's 8.
Because we have to listen to Lori, or because there is a stomach thing going around. Mr. Mo was down and out with it yesterday, so there is something going around. I am sorry. And no, you didn't respect Charles. He was your meal ticket. You'd found Charles' doorbell, and you basically had him paying for your house while you held his son hostage. Fair point. She is a cure for, well, overeating.
And what was the date of Mr. Vallow's passing? July 11th. And what was the cause of his passing? Well, he was shot. Okay, so I don't know how I want to put that. Okay, all right. And I hate to ask, but is it? Yeah, you can just say yes or no. Was it a homicide? No, it was an accident. An accident. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. And what state did he pass away in? Arizona. Okay. Okay. Just bear with me for one moment. I just need to pull up a few other things. Okay. Okay. Are you aware of who the primary beneficiary of the policy is? It's me. Okay. And may I have your...
That was the most was that Colby? Did he say bullshit? I mean, whoever had that apropos cough, congratulations. That was pretty good.
I'm sorry, one moment. My computer just went away for a second. Okay. And may I have your current mailing address? Sure, it's 55.
Whatever plane of
5249.
existence Lori lives on, I would want to visit for a day, but I wouldn't want to live there because it has to be trippy dippy.
Okay, ma'am. That is all the information I need to open the claim. What we will do now is review the policy and the file to confirm the beneficiary information and determine the claim requirements that we will need to settle this particular claim. Once we have completed our review, we will prepare a claim packet to send to the named beneficiary once that has been confirmed. And the claim packet can either be mailed or emailed or faxed. How would you like to receive correspondence? Email would be great. Okay, and what is your email address? It's Lori, Lori.
Oh my gosh. I would love to be her guard and say, no, we don't let you feed the prisoners.
All right, so you should receive an email from our office within the next 3 to 5 business days or sooner. It will have the instructions listed. Once you receive the information, if you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to give our office a call, and then we can go from there. Okay, is there anything I can help you with at this time? That's it, I think. Okay, ma'am. Well, I'm very sorry for your loss. You take care of yourself. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right, so we hear in Exhibit 215, that's yourself speaking with Ms. Vallow?
Yes,
And we hear her, you ask her if she knew who the primary beneficiary was, correct?
yes,
And who did she advise was the primary beneficiary?
herself.
We also hear you ask about sort of the cause of death for Charles Vallow, correct?
Yes,
And you asked when there was a pause if it could be, well, after she told you he was shot, right?
yes,
Did you need to know sort of, was it a suicide? Was it a homicide? Was it a,
correct, yes,
and so did you follow up by asking her if it was a homicide?
yes,
And she advised you it was an accident.
correct.
You got a phone number from her, the 808-755-5452 number,
Yes,
and her email address, the Lori for Style at iCloud account.
yes,
And then you had verified with her that she wanted to receive any correspondence by email, correct?
correct, yes,
And in fact, did you advise her that the named beneficiary would receive information via email then?
correct.
Is it normal when you have someone call in to make a death claim to wait and look up things before you let them know?
Yes, that is our standard procedure.
Okay, so you aren't doing anything weird there. That's just what you guys have to
No.
do. So what does Banner Life do to verify that that person that Lori Vallow was the beneficiary?
We review everything on the policy file in the system, as well as any paper document that has come through, such as an ownership change, beneficiary change, anything of that nature during the entire life of the policy since it was issued, to confirm that information, to make sure that we are providing the information to the appropriate party.
Did you in this call know at some point that there was perhaps something incorrect about her being the beneficiary?
Not during the call.
Did you look up afterwards?
Yes.
Okay. When somebody calls in to notify that there's been a death and try to get the policy payout, what would normally be required? Do they just have to call in and then you send them a check if their name's on there?
No. We review each policy to determine the claim requirements for that specific claim. They can vary from claim to claim, depending on, the situation with that particular policy. That is why we do prepare a claim packet specific for each claim that has been reported. We provide a packet of information with a cover letter that lists the claim requirements that are needed.
Oh my God, hearing her go through this, I realize that this sounds like the boringest job in the entire world ever, ever. Because that just sounds dead awful and terribly boring. that being said, I know there are some people that like to, look at the details and work over all of the percentages and are really good at insurance. So I'm not in any way denigrating that. No, it's more self-deprecating that I would be like the youngest, most feral, weaponized ADHD in that type of office. I would be the Noel Fielding and Richard Iowati of those offices.
And the two things that are always going to be required is our specific claim form that we provide for the beneficiary to complete, as well as a death certificate, which states both cause and manner of death.
Okay. So after Lori Vallow calls saying she's the primary beneficiary of that life insurance policy for her husband, Charles Vallow, did Banner Life Insurance actually determine?
And that's why I love how every different personality can find a job, because what sounds to me like prison sounds like a dream job to other people. So I do love that each and every one of us have kind of our own special skill set. So, everyone kind of has their own places to shine. Whereas like I said, I would be responsible for office supply theft and non-productivity. Possibly painting my fingernails with whiteout, if that's still a thing.
That she was not the primary beneficiary.
That's correct.
Bye, Tammy. Have a great day.
So now that you know she's not the primary beneficiary, how did you notify her of that?
I believe there was a letter that was submitted to her via email as she requested correspondence to be delivered to her in that aspect.
So would the letter tell her who was the primary beneficiary?
No,
Would the letter have told her when that was changed?
no,
It just would have advised her that she was not the primary beneficiary. Would Banner Life ever tell anyone who the new beneficiary is?
no.
Why not?
We can't release that information. That's personal and private information.
And that's something that just the policy owner has the right to determine.
Correct.
So was an email sent to Lori Vallow on July 18th of 2019 to advise her that she was not the beneficiary?
Yes,
And did she call back to speak with you about the issue?
yes,
And was there sort of a back and forth of phone tag before you were able to finally speak with her?
yes. I believe she left a voicemail for me as I was unavailable. I returned her call, and I believe I had to leave her a voicemail, and then she did call me back, and we were able to connect at that point.
Okay. Aaron, if I can have my paralegal approach with Exhibit 280. And if you can listen to that and see if you recognize that as yourself and Ms. Vallow again from the July 18th of 2019 conversation. Maybe you can just let us know when you have heard and recognized that as the July 18th of 2019 call.
I don't know who pointed it out, but I think those are issued headphones, and the deep personal willies I would have if can I bring my own wireless earbuds? Don't make me use the prison headsets with everyone's grotesque ears. Just the amount of Purell I would shower in, just
Yes, I do recognize the phone call.
Thank you. Your Honor, the state will move to admit Exhibit 280.
280.
280.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
280 is admitted.
And if we may publish that.
Claims Department, this is Robin. May I have the policy number? Sure.
all we're starting out with princess voice. I thought we would start out with raging thunder cow.
Okay, do you have the policy pulled up? Who am I speaking with? This is Lori Vallow. I'm returning your call. Yeah. I missed you. Okay, no problem. Let me just get all of this information up. Okay, so in your voicemail, you stated that you had something that stated you are the beneficiary of the policy? Right, so I have the original policy where I was the beneficiary, the sole beneficiary, and then we changed the policy to where I was 80% and we added two people, the coaches who invested in our company for each 10%. And that's the last one I have. That's the last update that I have. So can you tell me when that was changed again? I mean, I know my husband is the agent on record, so he can change it. He's the owner. Okay, I don't see anything regarding the second change that you said. I don't, and with those percentages, I don't see anything at all with you as 80% at any time. Okay, so maybe that's something he just told him he was going to do. That's just the handwritten copy I have that I found. So. Okay, so well, I really can't give too much information, but I can tell you that the beneficiary was changed in March of this year. Okay. Okay, I'm trying to figure out what he was doing since we have 5 kids and we've been married for 15 years. I'm sorry.
5 kids? No, you don't. Not to mention, I doubt that you gave any financial aid to his 2 children from his first marriage. And again, my personal stance on this is if you enter a relationship or a marriage with someone that already has a child, you better be prepared to welcome that child into your heart. But in whatever capacity they let you, but you are essentially, having to court 2 people, not in the same way, but again, you have to be willing to accept their previous children. That being said, I don't think she gave any financial consideration to those 2 boys, at least as far as I've been able to find out. And that is just absolutely gross. And then to claim them when they don't live with her adult son, and then the 2 children that actually live with her. The sympathy and woe is me. Newsflash to Corey Richardson and Lori. Being a widow doesn't make you not a douchebag. It's an add-on descriptor. It doesn't change any part of your character. Just like being a widow didn't make me any less of a sarcastic asshole. I was still a butt monkey most of the time. I just happened to add widow as something that happened in my life. So again, it is not, and to that grieving weirdo from the, Karen Reed trial, you went on 1 date with the man. Stop. It doesn't give you extra sainthood power. It means that something tragic happened in your life, yes, but it doesn't change your underlying character. It doesn't give you sainthood. It doesn't make you any more insightful or anything. It just means you had a tragedy, and everyone has. There's just a specific label for ours, and easy to use in a conversation. The fact that she's like, but I have 5 children. Again, ma'am, this is the wrong sympathy card to play for a person who actually didn't cosplay as the widow you're pretending to be.
Sorry. So I know he owes a lot of people money, and I was worried if I got money, they'd be coming after me for money. Right. No, I understand that. But now I will be with none. So, but did he change it to 1 person, or was it several people? Unfortunately, I can't release that. I'm sorry. Okay. No, I know you can't tell. We're in the business. My husband is the agent. He's the agent, so. Got it. Okay.
Who is this we, Lori?
All the time, so I kind of know how.
Lori, you are a hairdresser. Unless you got your insurance license, there was no we in this. Not to mention you made, it clear that you stayed at home with the children and he was the breadwinner. So how many different narratives and choose our own adventure facts are we using today?
How it works, but I'm completely surprised. Right. We have a 7-year-old with autism that we adopted together, so I'm surprised that he would do that without telling me. I'm so sorry. So I mean, there's nothing you can do about that, even though it's community
No.
property. I mean, it's his
No,
property.
this
He
is a
owns it.
contract that we have with the insured, exactly. So he's able to make any changes, during the lifetime of the policy.
This heifer's like, but I'm in a community property state. No, it's not. Really? I cannot be bothered with this woman's lack of ability to comprehend that one of these things has nothing to do with the other. This woman had to be rolling her eyes so hard that the earth tilted off axis.
Well, can I check? I mean, I have a policy, a $2 million policy on me. And since he's the agent, would he have been able to change the beneficiary on my policy?
Not if he was the agent. He would have had to own the policy, but I can certainly check.
But if he would have signed my name, could he have done that? I wonder.
I mean, I don't, I would.
He would have to find a very, very fraudulent notary because, again, as this woman stated in her prior testimony, for things over, I think, 500,000, everything, any sort of change in beneficiary, any change in the policy has to be signed and notarized by a licensed notary. And generally, if you have a notary license, you're supposed to be honest and such.
Would hope that wouldn't happen, but let me just pull up. Okay, let me just take a look and see what I can find on you.
It's under Lori Vallow. It would be under Lori Vallow. We have a $2 million policy on me, but I'm not even sure it's with Banner Life.
I'm not showing that it's with us.
It might be Life of the Southwest. We work with several companies.
Right.
But I could call them, and I'm just asking the question, like, I could call them and ask them and make sure the beneficiary is who I say. I mean,
I would. I mean, if you have a concern of that nature, I certainly would call and check on your own policies if you have concern that something may have happened.
Well, and I would have to change it anyway because he was the beneficiary as far as I know on my policy.
Right. So you would definitely want to update that at this point. And,
what happens, like if something happened to me, say today, and it's under him and he's deceased, what happens to that policy?
Well, if there's not every contract's different, but I mean, more than likely, if there was not a contingent beneficiary named, it would go to your estate.
To their estate.
Yeah. But if there's a contingent beneficiary name, then it would go to that person.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Well, thank you. I just needed that information.
Okay. No, not a problem. All right. You take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
So in this call, we hear yourself again with Ms. Vallow,
Yes.
and we hear her telling you that her husband left her with 5 kids to care for, right?
Yes.
And she told you that she understands how life insurance works, right?
Correct.
That she and her husband run this business about it, right?
Yes.
But then she asks you if an agent would be able to change who the beneficiary was.
Correct.
So she didn't really understand it.
I felt that she did not understand it fully.
And again, she told you she understood how this all worked, but then she asked you what would happen if she died. At this point, who would get, her money since her husband had been her beneficiary.
Yes, she did.
So you had to advise her of the fact that if there were contingent beneficiaries, they would get it.
Yes.
Ultimately, did Banner Life Insurance have any insurance policy with Lori Vallow?
No, she did not hold any coverage under Banner Life.
When she was talking to you, at one point she asked you or said, there's nothing you can do about that, right?
Correct.
And there's nothing you can do to change that. That is something that the owner is able to do,
Correct. We could not make any changes.
regardless of if you feel bad for someone.
Exactly.
Is it awkward for you when you have to talk to someone who thinks that they were the beneficiary and learns they're not?
It can be, yes.
Was that your last interaction with Lori Vallow?
To my recollection, yes.
Who did Banner Life Insurance Company ultimately pay the $1 million policy to?
To Mr. Vallow's sister, Kay Woodcock.
And before the insurance company, before Banner Life would pay that out to Kay Woodcock, did you actually have to call and verify with the police that she was not involved in the homicide or the murder of Charles Vallow?
Yes, that's correct.
I have no other questions for this witness.
Cross?
No questions, Your Honor.
Excuse me?
JKD Buck, she probably assumed that Charles gave the beneficiary to Kay, and rather than yell at this woman, she went directly to badgering and cajoling and guilt tripping Kay as to how do you feel about, keeping all that money when there's a widow with 5 children. Again, you can lie to the insurance agent because they don't know that you don't have the 5 kids, but Kay knows that you don't have 5 children at home. So that little guilt trip, I'm sure, I can't imagine how she thought it was going to work out. You can lie to people that don't know you, but about facts like that, but typically not people that know you.
No questions.
All right, are there any questions for this witness from any member of the jury? I don't see any. You can step down. Thank you. State can call its next witness.
Thank you.
And I will say, I appreciate that the state is, calling witnesses that matter, that advance kind of our understanding of the case, not taking a lot of time on random kind of, filler people.
Up here right in front here and be sworn in.
Please spell your name for the record.
Jeff, Jeff, over MOV.
Jeff Fafa.
Please raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
All right, you're gonna have a seat. Just walk around the court. Have a seat to my left.
Okay, random tangent time, but if you are a fan of Jeff Dunham, I've never realized that I agree with Peanut more than at any other time. Peanut's this kind of weird looking alien monkey creature puppet that he has. But what I will say is when he makes fun of Jeff and goes, Jeff Fafa, I have never been more, because Mr. Mo's name might have a double letter at the end, to which I'll go ta-ta-ta, and he gets so irritated. But I may have a little bit of the Peanut spirit in me, because when he bothers me, I go scut-ta-ta, and he's like, would you stop? And I'm like, no. That being said, I do try to be an okay wife. And Kay was supposed to give $200K to the 2 adult children and use the $500,000 for JJ's benefit. That would have included a monthly payment to Lori for food and housing and etc. Yeah, I am sure that there was talk prior to. Charles seems like a person that was very sort of set in his detail and having things planned out. So if Lori had just kept her yap shut, she would have probably realized that instead of turning it into a raging biatch and going after Kay. I would not have trusted her with her erratic behavior, and knowing that the children had the potential to be robbed of any sort of support that he would leave them. I wholeheartedly agree with Charles changing the beneficiary, not only because it warms my soul that Lori is eternally pissed off about it, but had the case not developed any further, had Charles been the only one to lose his life, the children would have been taken care of with Kay being, in charge of things rather than Lori squandering things as she did with, I believe, Tammy Daybell's insurance payout. Well, she and Charles. Y'all, I swear to all that is holy goodness and hoodness, I have seen this man at my local Walmart. I was like, wait a minute, I just ran into you at the dairy section. You were talking about your bull mastiff and telling us how you gave him a pot pie every mealtime. Legitimately, no joke, that did happen yesterday. I don't know what about this face says, hey, howdy, I'd like to chat at you. But I do end up in a lot of these random conversations. Uh, okay, you got me. Yes, he does. He sings silver and gold in the Rudolph. Well, he did actually have really good food, but he said that he supplemented with pot pie on top of that. But again, it was like I was just gonna go get milk. I was just trying to get milk and go home. I don't know. He seemed like a really sweet guy, so who knows? But now I'm like, how did you get to Arizona? JKD Bug, that's my speculation, is that Lori probably figured out that, and if you, Lori didn't like that Charles probably went for counsel for anyone but Lori. So the fact that Kay helped him out while she was gone all that time, she probably saw that as, trying to indoctrinate Charles away from Lori or anything like that. So my guess is that Lori, even though she's thick as a plank, figured out that if anyone was going to be left in charge of something, it would probably be Kay. And then, of course, after this all came out in the wash, Lori refused to let JJ attend the memorial that Kay and the rest of that family put together for Charles. So Lori is a vindictive butt monkey who in no way exhibits any Christ-like, exemplars to live your life by. Now, this is a forensic scientist.
Scientist with the Arizona Department of Public Safety in the Firearms and Toolmark Unit.
How long have you worked there?
I've been with DPS since February of 2013. I've been assigned to the Firearms Unit since October 1st of 2018.
Can you tell us about your education and training to work in the area of firearms identification?
Sure. Part of the hiring standards for the DPS Crime Lab is I do have a bachelor's degree in chemistry from Arizona State University. My specialized firearms training is I attended the National Firearms Examiner Academy hosted by the ATF in Laurel, Maryland. The academy consists of 4 phases. It's approximately a year long, with phase 1 being research and history of and all of the techniques that go into it. Phase 2 is a full on-site 17-week training experience in Maryland, practicing exactly what it is that we do. Then we go into practical examinations, meaning I'm doing competency tests and proficiency tests throughout the summer and preparing a research project.
Well, I guess you are quite near Baltimore, and well, in the recent past, though I have heard it's getting slightly better, there has been no lack of, well, gunshot wounds to examine, I guess. Also, are we trusting the ATF to teach anyone? I mean, I don't know. That's just my spicy take.
Project, which in phase 4, I will present and conduct mock trials.
Do you have ongoing training as well?
We do. Every year, we're offered the opportunity to attend SHOT Show, which is the firearms industry trade show in Las Vegas every year. There's also the Association of Firearms and Toolmark.
Sure, you go to a conference in Las Vegas. That being said, I'm sure, given, we're in America, the firearms convention has to be fun of things that would make Ian Runkle's heart explode with happiness. He probably goes to that, I bet. I don't know. It'd be fun to see Runkle with all the big fun stuff that he's not allowed to have. But bless Canada and happy National Canada Day. I'm guessing it involves fireworks, but that just might be my dumb American thought pattern. So use fireworks or don't, as whenever you celebrate Canada Day, you must follow all of Canadian laws and watch Degrassi.
Mark examiners meeting once a year, which is our annual training. It is nothing but peers within my discipline doing seminars and presenting on findings for various cases and various new technologies coming out.
And in DPS itself, is there any type of QAS or means to ensure that all of the firearms examiners are continuing to perform appropriately?
Absolutely. After the training, we are all given a competency test. We have to demonstrate our ability to do the job. So it's a very complex test consisting of all of the disciplines that we do: tool marks, firearms, serial number restoration, various other.
I'm guessing that would be a stereotype. Oh, you guys do fireworks. Awesome sauce. And then you all burn copies of South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut for their vile portrayal of Canadians. Although that is still one of my favorite movie for all of the musical parts in it. I mean, if there's not a part of your day where you don't just belt out, what would Brian Boitano do if he were here today? Well, I bet he'd kick an ass or two. That's what Brian Boitano do. I mean, if you don't sing that to yourself while in Walmart, I don't know if well, you're probably not me. And congratulations. Oh, fun. Everyone's out doing barbecue in Canada. Unless you're in Quebec, and then I think you just do whatever you want to do.
Aspects of my job. But then every year we're giving a proficiency test from an outside source, so we're testing our continued or demonstrating our continued competency within the field.
So I want to start by asking you just some generic questions about how a semi-automatic handgun works.
So a semi-automatic gun, meaning a semi-automatic means that it is designed to fire one round with a single pull of the trigger, but it's also meant to cycle the firearm. And what I mean by cycle is the process of loading a firearm means introducing a magazine, particularly in a semi-automatic, which contains a number of cartridges. Cycling it means pulling the slide back and allowing it to go forward. When that happens, it strips off one of the cartridges from the magazine and loads it into chamber. So we call that chambering. At that point, it is ready to fire. When the trigger is pulled, the firing pin is released on a striker type system. It's a spring loaded firing pin, or a hammer type system where it's a weighted hammer that goes in and strikes firing pins. You hit this back of this cartridge to ignite the round. It then begins, the pressure builds up within that cartridge, expels the bullet down the barrel, but that same amount of pressure is also working to push it back. So it pushes that slide rearward. So it starts to move it back, unlocks the barrel, lets it go all the way back, and then comes forward and loads the next one.
So I'm going to put up, first, I have Exhibit 76 here. Is this a semi-automatic handgun?
Yes, it is.
And then I'm going to put 85 in here. Is that what a live round looks like?
A live round, or we call it a cartridge, it's just a single unit of ammunition, consists of the cartridge case, primer, powder, and projectile.
So when a handgun is used and the trigger is pulled, we have a projectile that goes out to the barrel of the gun. What happens to the rest of that cartridge or live round?
So the rectangular portion on top, the black portion of the slide that's on top, that whole thing moves. So it will actually, when the cartridge is fired, the pressure of that cartridge will force that rearward, and it opens up that chamber so that the expelled cartridge can be ejected, the cartridge case will be ejected, and the new one can be loaded in via the magazine. The very bottom here, where the kind of the hand is grabbing at the bottom, is where the magazine is inserted.
So put Exhibit 77. Is this where you're talking about where the cartridge is going to eject from?
That is actually showing the side of the barrel, that which houses the chamber, but that section opens up, and that is where the ejection takes place.
So you had talked about this.
Enunciate when you say ejection. I could only imagine the hijinks and shenanigans I would get into, possibly not enunciating correctly. Also, as a caveat, and I know a lot of you are, old G's and not new people into watching trials, but if there's, replay or new lurkers that are just watching trials, Ian Runkle is a really good Canadian lawyer who talks a lot about firearms, and a lot of courts are now starting to move towards ballistics evidence being more of a situation of this particular projectile can be included in, freedom seeds that have come out of this force multiplier versus they can be excluded. If you've ever watched, Forensic Files or CSI Crime Labs and things like that, it kind of almost portrays bullets and when they're fired being somewhat like fingerprints. And the truth is that it's not that precise. It can be fairly subjective because of humans having to line things up on a dual microscope and the human mind wanting to find patterns. Just naturally, we are pattern finders. So it has been made more of a could be included in or excluded from, but not a 100% like this is the fingerprint of this particular barrel of this particular firearm, because it is not that precise. But that is, some kind of standard stuff for, people that have been watching trials for a long time. But it is something that is cropping up more and more as more states kind of challenge this forensic information. And Ian Runkle breaks it down with much more, properness and actual lawful law than I just did there.
In some of the different jobs that you do as a firearms analyst, when a person fires a semi-automatic handgun, are there any sort of identifying tool marks that might be left on the projectile or the bullet?
Absolutely. All of that pressure that builds up and is pushing the cartridge case back, it is resting against what we call the breech face. The breech face has a hole in it where the firing pin comes through and it strikes the primer. The primer is just that little button in the center of the cartridge. It's actually a very volatile compound that ignites the powder charge instantly. So all of that pressure builds up and presses against that breech face. Being a semi-automatic, as it cycles back, the barrel has to unlock. So it moves slightly back, but then as it unlocks, it drops down. And as it drops down, that cartridge case is scratching up against the surface of that breech face, imparting all kinds of marks that we use for comparison purposes.
When the projectile itself is fired out the barrel, are there any tool marks left on that?
Yes. So when the bullet is being pushed out of the barrel, through the barrel, all of that pressure is pushing it through. A barrel is rifled. Now, rifling is a pattern of lands and grooves that are in a rotational pattern that impart the spin on there. All of that pressure causes the back end of that projectile to expand and to fill that void. So as it's going through, it's dragging along the inside of the barrel, picking up any of the imperfections from the manufacturing process that are there, similar to a fingerprint. So when it comes out, we're able to look around there and you can see the pattern of the rifling all the way around the bullet and the individual striations or scratches on the surface coming from the inside of the barrel.
So if you are provided with a gun, casings, and projectiles, are you able to determine in any way if those casings or projectiles were fired from a specific gun?
Yes, and we do that by doing what we call a comparison. So we go ahead and we take that fired evidence and we're going to look at it. We want to verify that there's markings on there that we can use for comparisons. Then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to test fire this firearm. I'm going to collect those test fired cartridge cases and projectiles if need be, and I'm going to do a comparison side by side on my comparison microscope. It's just a high powered microscope that allows me to see two things simultaneously side by side at the same magnification. So I'm going to have them side by side and try to line up those scratches and marks that are left on there from the machining process to the next.
So when we're talking about a barrel, you said there's like lands and grooves in there. Is that alone enough for you to identify if a projectile was fired from a specific gun, or are you looking for more specific, unique characteristics from each gun?
So each one, we start with what we call class characteristics. The class characteristics are those that are pre-designed before manufacture, such as what caliber is it? Is it a 9mm? Is it a 45, 40, whatever it may be? Then we're going to look at how many lands and grooves are there. If there is, maybe there's 5, maybe there's 6, maybe there's 8. All of that we use as an initial screening. Can this come from this gun? Say I have a gun that's a 9mm and I have a 45 bullet. That's not possible. So it's an automatic rule out. But those imperfections from the manufacturing process are what we use, and how the scratches translate into there are very unique to those barrels.
So you said you test fire the weapon. Why do you do that? What are you using that for?
Well, When a case like that comes in, whenever we receive a weapon, we first and foremost, we want to verify, number one, that it's safe and unloaded. Number two, that it's actually operational as a weapon. So we're verifying that it can fire and it works as designed. But then I'm also using that time, I document the condition of it as I received it. I document any of the features that are on there, such
Make sure Alec Baldwin never touched it. I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to do in Arizona.
as in this particular case up here, we have a brown and black gun. That's one of the notes that I would have on there.
When you are doing this comparison and looking for these unique characteristics that you may see from the tools or the actual combustion of this, are there different levels of interpretation or conclusions that you're able to reach during this comparison process?
Yes, when we're doing a comparison, we're first and foremost looking for marks that recreate. So the different levels of opinion that I can form at the end is I can identify it. I can say this piece of fired evidence was fired from this gun. I could say this piece of evidence was not fired from this piece of gun, or this particular gun, excuse me. Or if there's just none of those marks that are reproducing or an insufficient amount of marks for us to actually compare, we can actually go out inconclusive, meaning I'm not sure whether it was or not.
So I'm going to have my paralegal go up to you with a few items here. It is exhibits 235, 38, 40, 239, and 246. I'm going to let you sort of keep those, and I'm going to start with 246, the handgun. Were you provided with that gun as part of a request to determine if you could, well, were you provided with that gun?
I was. When we receive evidence such as a firearm, we actually initial, date, and put the identifying information to the case on the firearm. Right here, just underneath the slide on the frame of this firearm is the DR number, our department record number, the item number. So the combination of that DR number and the item number is our unique identifier to track that piece of evidence, and then my initials and date.
Okay. Were you provided with a couple of casings, 238 and 240?
Yes, I was. And again, when I received these, when we receive evidence such as this fired casing here, which is 240, we initial and date the day we receive it. So it's here. There's my initials and date from when I resealed it. It's currently hiding up. It's actually right up here at the top where I initial and dated it when I received it.
Okay. And were you also provided with a projectile, if you can look at 235 and 239? And I believe you only had one of those.
That's correct. There's the one bullet I received right underneath our unique tracking. We barcode everything. It's got our department record number, item number. I initial and dated it as I received it.
And which number was that?
This is item 239.
Thank you. What were you asked to do with these items?
This particular case, I was asked to compare the cartridge cases and the bullet back to the firearm.
And that's the firearm that we see here in Exhibit 77, what we see as 246.
Yes, it is.
All right. So starting with this, what can you tell us about the gun itself? What is the caliber? What is the brand of that?
The firearm is a Springfield Armory XDM 45 caliber semi-automatic pistol.
And so when we talk about 45 caliber, what does that mean?
45 refers to just the size of the bore. In this particular case, it's a 45 auto caliber, so or 45 ACP, common to most 45s made today. But that's actually the measurement of the bore.
Were you able to, when you looked at you told us you often look to see just initially, did these all match together? When you looked at the caliber of those casings that you were given, did they match with the 45 caliber?
The two cartridge cases I received were Fiocchi brand 45 auto caliber cartridge casings.
Okay. Now, what about the projectile, the bullet that you're given? Is there a way for you to determine if that is consistent with a 45 caliber, being fired from a 45 caliber handgun?
Yes, so when we receive a bullet like this, I'm going to go ahead and measure the diameter across the fired bullet to achieve that. And it measured, I don't know the exact number, but it's approximately 0.45 inches.
Okay. Now, when you first were handed the gun, you said you'd make some notes about that. Did you note anything about it as to whether or not the gun appeared to have been previously fired at some point?
The only notes that we take is we do look down the barrel of the gun. When what I'm looking for is mainly safety purposes. I want to make sure there's no obstruction, because if I fire it and there's an obstruction, it could be could be catastrophic failure of the firearm, but I'm also looking at and documenting the rifling. And when we look down a barrel, we can see, I would notate that it's slightly fouled barrel or whatnot, meaning that there's powder particles and or traces of bullets going through the firearm.
So that would mean it was consistent with having been fired at least.
Correct.
So you talked about test firing. Did you test fire this gun?
I did. I test fired this particular firearm into a water tank. I used the water tank because we wanted to collect projectiles for comparison purposes, and the water tank allows us to do that without damaging the bullets.
What kind of ammunition do you use?
But weren't both bullets, one going through, I believe, drywall and the other one going through or deforming on the floor? Wouldn't those make the comparisons a little bit hard to gather because of deformation of the bullet as it went, as sad as it is to say, but through Charles, hitting some bones, but then ricocheting on the floor and going through drywall? Look, I mean, he seems like he's doing a thorough job. I just thought it would be harder to kind of figure those things out with deformations in the shape that might change pattern sort of placement.
How do you determine that?
So first and foremost, we would like to use like ammunition. So this was Fiocchi brand ammunition. We hopefully would have some of that in our reference collection. However, I did not, so I would grab the next closest type of ammunition. I believe it was Winchester that I used in this particular case that has the same exact type of primer, the same exact type of casing, and the same exact type of projectile.
When you talk about the same exact type, are you talking about like the metals or what are you talking about?
For instance, the bullet in this case is a copper jacketed round nose full metal jacket. So I would look to test fire a copper jacketed full round nose bullet.
Okay. So when you test fired this gun, did you know anything with regards to the functionality of it?
I noted that it functioned as designed. I did test fire this by hand chambering. I didn't try a magazine in there because one wasn't submitted with it, but it operated with no problems.
Okay. How many times did you test fire it?
We collect a minimum of 3. In this particular case, I only did fire it 3 times. That's all that I needed.
And so each time you're having to put a bullet in there and pull the trigger each time.
That's correct.
If you'd had a magazine, would you still have had to pull the trigger each time to fire it?
Yes, it operates still semi-automatic, so the trigger would have to be pulled each time to fire a cartridge case. I just wouldn't have to reload one into the chamber each time.
So once you created these test fire, let's start with cartridges, did you attempt to compare those to the ones you were provided, exhibits 238 and 240?
So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to collect my test fires and I'm going to compare them to each other. And why I'm doing that is I want to make sure that there's marks on there that reproduce over our test fires. If there's no marks reproducing, how would I be able to compare it to the evidence? From there, once I determine that it's sufficient, and I do photo document all of my comparisons, once I figure it's sufficient for an identification there, I'll go ahead and do a comparison to the unknown evidence and make my opinion based on that comparison.
So the test fires that you have, you look to make sure that those are creating each time the same, both class characteristics and individual characteristics.
Correct, yes.
And the class being sort of the generic ones that every type of Springfield might create.
Correct, yes.
And these individual ones are characteristics that are specific and unique to this weapon.
Correct. They're from use, abuse, cleaning, anything like that, and the individual manufacturing of each component.
When you compared those two cartridge casings, 238 and 240, to the test fires that you created from Exhibit 246, the handgun, were you able to reach any conclusions?
I was.
And what was your conclusion?
I was able to determine, I identified those cartridge cases as having been fired on that particular firearm based on my comparison of the test fires to that evidence.
So the two cartridge casings, 238 and 240, were fired from the handgun you have up there, 246.
Correct.
You also, when you test fired the gun, did you collect the projectiles, the bullets?
I did. I collected three bullets from our water tank for comparison purposes.
Did you go through the same process of looking at those 3 to see if they matched up?
I did, yes.
And did they?
They absolutely did, yes.
So again, they had sufficient class characteristics and individual characteristics for you to then proceed to try to identify them or compare them to the unknown bullet.
That's correct.
When you compared Exhibit 239, the projectile that was recovered, to the projectiles that you created when you test fired, were you able to reach any conclusions with regards to this weapon?
I was, like the cartridge cases, I identified the projectile as having been fired from that particular firearm.
So the bullet that you were given, you've identified as having been fired from this Springfield semi-automatic 45 caliber handgun.
That's correct.
Did that end your work in this case?
That ended my analysis from this case. From then, I go ahead and I take all of my notes. The entire process I'm photo documenting. So when I open this up and I was documenting the condition as it's receiving, I'm also taking photos. When I'm doing the comparison, I'm also taking photos of the evidence side by side and any kind of areas of interest that I'm looking at. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and document my opinion and my results on our worksheets. I'm also going to print out all of my photos. I am then going to take all of that evidence and I'm going to hand it to another trained examiner. That other trained examiner, without looking at my results, is going to take all of that evidence and do a comparison himself. And then he'll form his own opinion and then verify that it matches or is similar to my results.
And was that done here?
Yes, it was.
Did that alter in any way your opinion?
Not at all. He was in agreement of my results.
When you talk about the photo, so in your report, you're actually showing all of those characteristics that we've talked about so anyone else could later look at them and see how you reached your conclusion.
It's the photo documentation it's just a snapshot of one portion of the comparison, but yes, a trained examiner should be able to look at them and understand what exactly I was looking at.
Good. So ultimately, your conclusion was both those cartridge casings and that projectile that you were provided was fired from the gun you were provided.
That's correct.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
Cross-examination.
I feel like Bev. Dear God, Lori, please understand that you are trying to have a defense of self-defense, which is an affirmative defense, meaning you are going to have to concede that Alex, in defense of you and others, shot that gun. So please, for the love of God, don't ask this man, are you sure that this could have been like someone else's? And any number of inane things that you're going to do, because you have to realize that in order to claim self-defense, you must affirmatively say that you did the action. For example, in proof of this, look at Theodore Edgecombe, who tried to claim accidental self-defense unintentionally. It's not sort of a legal premise that you can hold successfully.
I just have a couple questions, Your Honor.
Promise.
Mr. Boberg, when did you receive the request to test this firearm?
It was early March of this year.
So March 2025?
Yes.
And then how long after you received the request did you test the firearm?
I was notified that the request was coming in a couple of days. I received the evidence on a Wednesday, which my week wraps up on Thursday, and I did all of the work on that the following Monday, and the report was put out by Tuesday morning.
Okay, do you know what the date that Tuesday report was put out by?
I don't know the exact date. If you'd like, I can refer to my notes and give you that exact date.
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay.
Is that okay?
So the report was authored on March 4th of 2025. The evidence was received in our property and evidence unit on 2/26 of 25, in which I also received them on that 2/26 of 25 and returned them to our evidence room on the 4th of March.
Okay, thank you. And who requested you to do this test on this firearm? Where did your request come from?
This particular request was made from a detective who reached out to me via email explaining could I assist him with the rush. I passed it through my supervisor, who allowed me to contact the detective and have the evidence submitted. And then it was assigned to me because the request was sent directly to me.
Do you know what detective that was?
Detective Duncan.
Okay. And then who did you send your report to?
Once I'm finished with my analysis, my report is then reviewed by another examiner and then a supervisor to make sure that it's all technically correct, and then admin, and then they're electronically released to Detective Duncan.
Okay. And then you said you had done some photo documenting. Were those photos attached to this report?
They were attached to all of my case notes, yes.
Okay. So there's a report, case notes, and then the photo documentaries?
It's all part of, the notes and the photo documentation is all one.
And how long do you think?
Documented photos. Damn, woman. This is English. We all agree to it. Could you please use it in a functional way so I don't feel like I'm smelling burnt toast?
That report was total.
Oh, it's roughly 13 pages total, 13, 14 pages with the actual report.
Okay, thank you. So you fired the firearm 3 times, is that correct?
That's correct.
In your testing?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And then if you were, did you point it all in the same direction when you fired?
When I
Lori, he's pointing into a water tank, so the water will slow the bullet without putting any other marks on it. He points it in the same What are you talking, ma'am? This woman graduated before No Child Left Behind. That's all I got to say.
I did my test firing, I was firing into a water tank. The water tank has it's approximately 10-inch thick stainless steel tube with a rest inside of it that I fire it into. So it stays in one place and fires at a specific angle into the water so that I'm not striking anything or being unsafe in any way.
And what's your distance at that point?
Approximately a foot.
Oh, just a foot away into the water tank?
Into the water, yeah.
Okay. And then did all of the casings go into the exact same place, like close to the same place?
So around the inlet tube that we shoot into, we have a big net that catches the cartridge cases.
So you can't really tell where they landed, I guess, because the net catches them? Is that what you're saying?
This land as far as they kind of shoot out of the gun and then get caught by the net.
Okay, so they don't land on the ground and roll close to each other? Okay. But you kind of got a feel for this gun because you shot it, right?
I did.
So if you were to shoot the gun straight and then move 40 degrees to the right and shoot it again, do you think that the casings would end up in the same area?
Objection as to speculation without foundation of,
He shot the gun, Your Honor. I was asking his
Hold on,
opinion.
Hold on. He can answer.
Lori, what you would need to ask for is relying on his expertise in both firearm, I guess, history, and then, being, I guess, acquainted with firearms through this ATF program. He might have a wealth of knowledge in this. However, you would be better asking a police officer or the firearms instructor, which you did. I believe the first detective who used the laser thing, she did ask him about trajectory of the shell casings, and he did give her a long sort of list of hypotheticals of what could have happened to those shell casings being in different places. The first responders were in, if there had been a scuffle afterwards, if there had been movement around the scene afterwards. A whole lot. Also, she must never have watched CSI because some of the mistakes she and Alex made, season 1 stuff.
Sir, first of all, if he understands the question.
If I may clarify?
Sure.
So you're asking if I point a weapon, say this way, and then turn this way?
Correct.
Okay. I can't answer that.
Go ahead.
I would expect the cartridge case to be slightly different from the very first one, but not much, depending on what interacts with it in its flight path. Did it bounce off of something? What's the floor type? Or whatever it hits first? I couldn't say without knowing any of that.
Okay. So would it be safe to say that the casings would end up in the same place if you didn't move and you fired 2 shots? They should end up close to the same location.
Again, it really depends on what is around, because typically when a semi-automatic firearm is fired, the slide comes back and the cartridge case ejects up and to the right. So if you moved slightly, you're changing that angle slightly, so it could be slightly different. It could be in the same location depending on how they bounce and roll.
Okay. So if you fired the gun and the casing ricocheted off the wall, but then you moved the gun and fired it again somewhere else, it could miss the ricocheting of the wall altogether, right?
Again, without knowing the scene, I couldn't say.
Okay. So in your report, I don't want to simplify it because I know that you are a scientist, but
Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Okay, first of all, he's not a scientist. He is a scientist, but Okay, never mind. He has more of an education than Shannon with two N's, so I'm gonna give it to him. And he got to hang out with the ATF and hopefully not Brian Higgins. That being said, is she really going to try to belittle this man and say he's not an expertologist after she just called on his expertology to bolster her position that Spain and the cartridges could be anywhere?
Is it basically saying that this gun, that those casings came from this particular gun?
My exact wording would be very similar to that. It would say items, whatever the unique identifier is, were identified as having been fired from item, which is the gun.
Okay. This particular gun, correct?
Correct.
And then you would say that those projectiles also came from this particular gun. Is that correct? Okay. And then,
Well, congratulations, Lori, for finally cottoning on to why he's a witness in this case and what he does. Congratulations for finally getting there. You would get a participation award, but I don't want you participating in what I call humanity, because you don't go here and you don't belong with us, allegedly in Minecraft.
and this testing was done this year on March 4th, is that correct?
March
Right.
4th is my report date, meaning all of the analysis is completed and it is done. At that point, my analysis was actually conducted on the 3rd.
Okay. Okay, no more questions, thank you.
Redirect.
Which side did the casings eject from on this Springfield?
On this particular Springfield, the ejection port is angled to the right and up.
Okay. So in order well, let me ask you this. When casings are ejected and you're not attempting to move your arm or the gun, do they always land right in the exact same spot?
They do not.
Do they bounce and roll?
They do. Again, it's a very violent action. That slide is moving very quickly. A lot of times the cartridge case is spitting, so they can tumble through the air and again, bounce off of anything such as the floor, walls, anything around.
So even as each time you pull the trigger, if you're trying your hardest to keep it as still as you can, does that mean the casings will land exactly right next to each other?
No, they won't.
Where the casings land, does that depend on multiple factors?
Absolutely.
So the type of flooring or ground would be one thing?
Any kind of intervening objects, type of flooring, if it lands on grass, it's probably going to stick or stop, or if it lands in carpet or tile, wood, all bounces differently.
If it bounces off a wall, that would impact where it might land?
Yes.
So having fired guns multiple times, semi-automatics, at your best in trying to keep them together, are they maybe grouped in a general area together?
Typically, when we're firing multiple rounds repeatedly, they tend to generally land in a kind of a pool area. It's not small, but it is a generalized area.
And in a situation where a gun may be slightly moved, that cantering of a gun, can that change the location of the casing itself?
Absolutely. I mean, it's designed, as it's designed, it will eject up and to the right. So, I mean, if you turn it this way, it's up, could change dramatically, however you're angling it or turning it.
When you are talking about casings and where they land, even if you go and see them, are you able to look at them and say that was from shot number 1 or that was from shot number 2?
Oh, no, we just generalize an area of where a shooter might have been.
And again, that's just because they're landing at best in a pool area, even if you're trying to shoot as straight and uniform as you can.
That's correct.
I have no other questions, Your Honor.
All right. Any questions for this witness from any member of the jury? I see at least one coming down.
Ooh. I watched Ian Runkle and he said your form of and brand of forensic science is bullshit. Do you have anything to say to that? Now, I'm sure that question wouldn't be
If the
read
gun
by
was
me, but it
held
would be hilarious.
Sideways. I have a question from a juror. Where would the casings go if the gun was held sideways?
Just for clarification, sideways either way.
Why don't you tell us for either way?
So if I was to cant it sideways and the butt was down, it could potentially go up and fall to the left side because of the way the gravity would be. However, if you turn it this way, it's angling it further down. And again, it depends on how it hits the ground, what it can bounce off of.
All right, any other juror questions? Not seeing any follow-up from the defense based on that question?
No.
State?
No, Your Honor.
All right, sir, you can step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. State can call its next witness.
Thank you.
And again, just the caliber of experts they have. I know that I've kind of spent the entire time with ballistics saying there's a lot of conjecture, but this particular witness was personable and again has carried through with being able to give a kind of detailed information that doesn't overcomplicate things for the jury, but also isn't condescending. And have a great lunch. I'm going to do about 30 minutes more and then I'm off to my lunch. And then I will be getting a stiff drink because I will be deep diving into all of the documents for the Stephen Stearns case, which I think we have to hammer some things down. I may be covering with another creator just because that case is concentrated hell and evil. But Maddie's story needs to get out. Madeline Soto was a beautiful young girl who didn't deserve the life that her mother and allegedly Stephen Stearns both gave her and how it ended. And it's going to be an ugly case, but I need to get all of the prior information for it. So I'm probably going to need a stiff drink and a lot of kitten videos after going through all the things that have been collected about that particular boil on the taint of humanity.
All right, come on right up here in front and be sworn in.
Hi, can you spell your name for the record? Sandra, C-A-S-S-A-N-D-R-A. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
The fact that the mother is still walking free just boggles my mind. It is beyond comprehension that a mother would basically gift wrapped her child for a gross, disgusting piece of human garbage. And with full knowledge, just to continue to allow it to happen like there is no problem with it. And my heart breaks for a little girl who on her birthday just wanted to go live in the forest and not be subject to any of the stuff that was going on in her home. It's just an absolute Northwest, if the rest of her family members, and I mean Maddie's family members are okay, I don't care what the mom says with that, I'd be fine. But I think we've seen with the Idaho 4 and the Koberger case that consultation with the family before any big, change is made to the case is vital, so that the family isn't re-victimized by changes that might be strategic or lessen the chance for appeal. It still needs to be explained, the rationale and why this is happening to the families. I could see that happening. I honestly could.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Cassandra Anglon. I'm a detective with the Chandler Police Department in our robbery homicide unit.
Can you tell us about your career with the Chandler Police Department?
So next week, I will have 24 years at the department. Started in patrol, graduated through the Phoenix Police Academy. I have no prior, all my experiences with Chandler. started in patrol. I worked there a couple years and then was selected to move into a newer unit they created, which was more of a general investigations unit. Worked assaults, burglaries, thefts, kind of entry-level detective type cases. We had a reorganization I'd been in that unit about a year and a half, and that unit morphed into our family violence unit. So at that point, my cases became primarily physical child abuse cases, some missing person type cases, and then the majority was domestic violence, assaults, aggravated assaults, things like that. Worked in that unit for a couple years and then moved into our narcotics and organized crime unit and worked in that unit for about 5 years, doing primarily large-scale narcotics investigations. In September of 2009, I was selected and moved into our robbery and homicide unit, and I've been in that unit since September of 2009, where I am now.
As part of your job, are you called out to respond to scenes?
Yes.
And what are your normal working hours?
So we work 4/10s, so 4 10-hour shifts a week. There are 6 people in our unit. So I am one of the 3 that works Tuesday to Fridays, and then the other half of our unit works Monday to Thursdays. But there is one detective in our unit that's on call all the time. And then depending on the scale of the case, the on-call is responsible for being available to come in off hours. But depending on the scale of the case, they'll call in additional detectives to help, sometimes supplementing from other units within the department, depending on the case.
Were you working on Thursday, July 11th of 2019?
I was.
And where were you located? Where's your office?
So my office is at our main precinct, which is in downtown Chandler. But that day, I was not in the office. I was driving to kind of a community event that was in West Chandler.
Were you asked to respond to a scene at 5531 South Four Peaks Place in Chandler, Maricopa County, Arizona?
I was.
Why were you asked to respond to that house?
So I had initially heard some radio traffic about a potential shooting that had happened there. And then, so I was aware of the call for service that was going on that patrol had responded to. And then I was contacted by my supervisor shortly thereafter by phone because I wasn't in the station. And they had asked that myself and several detectives respond down to assume that investigation from patrol.
Do you recall approximately when you arrived at that house?
I believe it was right around 9:28, 9:30 is my arrival time on CAD, but it would have been within a couple minutes of that, depending on how significant the radio traffic was that I could get out onto the radio.
In 2019, as a detective, did you have body-worn camera assigned to you?
We did not.
So you were not wearing a body cam unit at that time?
No, we did not get ours issued until, I believe, a couple years later.
Okay. Can you describe for us the crime scene when you arrived?
So when I arrived in the neighborhood, it's a gated community. I arrived on the north side of where the residence was. Marked patrol units and uniformed patrol officers were there. There was already a yellow crime scene about a house or two north and a house or two south. And I could see several of the initial patrol officers that had responded that were present when I got there.
When you got there, was the fire engine still there?
I believe they were, but there was what we call our care unit. Our CR 288 is the crisis unit. They're a fire personnel, but they respond out to our scenes at our request as well.
Okay, and so that was there.
Correct.
Did you observe any individuals that you learned to be the shooter at the scene?
I did. Alex Cox.
Can you describe where you saw him?
So when I approached the house, I was walking south towards the house. He was seated on a curb. I remember there being like a trash can or something right there. And Officer Krautheim was outside. And I remember seeing him sitting there as I walked past up to a supervisor at the scene.
And can you describe for us the demeanor of Alex Cox when you went by him?
He was sitting on the curb, didn't really appear, just kind of normal, wasn't really agitated or upset. He had what looked like, I think it was a paper towel or Kleenex in his hand. And at one point he reached back and kind of touched the back of his head. But he was just seated, just kind of sitting there.
Did you observe yourself any injuries at that time to his head?
I did not. I didn't have contact with him at the scene at all.
Okay. When you arrive at a scene like that as a detective, what's sort of the process of, what does everyone do when you get there?
So initially what we try is that the first one or two investigative type personnel usually will make immediate contact with the supervisor on scene, usually a sergeant or a lieutenant, and try to just kind of do a quick assessment or triage of what's going on. What is kind of the quick initial what happened? Is anybody outstanding? What are kind of the things we need to do? Because then as personnel from like my unit and other investigative units arrive, we can start assigning tasks and roles. We always, by practice, assign a case agent, and then a scene agent is separate. And then any other personnel that get there start assigning tasks, what needs to be done, what needs to happen.
So what is the roles of a detective versus the patrol officers who've been there?
So patrol officers are going to be your first responders. They are going to be the ones that dispatch when you call 911 or the non-emergency number. Patrol is going to come to your house first. They're the uniformed in a marked patrol car. They're going to respond out and do the initial investigation, initial scene safety, initial first aid until it's safe for fire to get there. They're going to be your initial first responders. If the call or event or incident that they're responding to is going to be more significant or more serious, or maybe needs more specialized equipment or investigation, or potentially they might need a search warrant, then you're going to see where detectives are going to get called out to assume an investigation from patrol. So there will be some overlap. And then once we come out and kind of take the investigation over, patrol then gets released from the event, and it will become kind of property of the detectives that come out to assume the case.
Do you have patrol officers still helping things like securing the scene and making sure that, no one is just running up into the house or something?
Absolutely.
While you were on scene, did you notice any other civilians kind of waiting around?
Yes.
Who did you notice?
At one point, I realized that where Officer Krautheim was standing, basically across from the house, it was within the crime scene, that an adult female, Lori Vallow, and then her daughter, Tylee, had at some point got there. I'm not sure exactly when, but I realized that they were standing in the vicinity of Officer Krautheim within the crime scene near a red car.
Did you see the interaction between Officer Krautheim and these two, Lori Vallow and Tylee?
I did, from across the street.
When you saw that interaction, did you know who they were at that point?
I did not know who they were. I found out a short time later.
Okay. So did Officer Krautheim advise you and other detectives who they were?
Yes.
So you said the female was Lori Vallow?
Correct.
Do you see her in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you point her out and identify what she's wearing?
She's seated at the defense table wearing like a navy blue blazer.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant.
It shall.
Can you?
It is so interesting that this detective is almost a mirror opposite of Lori. I mean, while she seems like she takes care of herself and, wants to dress nicely for court, she hasn't put on loads of makeup. She, hopefully her hair is straight like that, but she hasn't done a ton of things on her hair. You can tell she's focused and very much more worried on, giving out information and helping this case and this trial move forward. Whereas Lori is all fluff and smoke and mirrors and never really direct in what she wants other than, tries to manipulate and cajole. So it will be interesting to see how she reacts with other women who don't buy her BS. I have a feeling that Lori is much more confrontational with other women who don't fall for her Disney princess sort of BS.
Can you describe Lori Vallow's demeanor when you saw her across the street there?
So she was standing, the car they were near was parked along the curb, and she was standing basically in front of the parked car. And Tylee was standing next to her, just kind of appeared to be having this kind of ordinary interaction with Officer Krautheim, just kind of talking to him, didn't seem real animated or emotional, just seemed very kind of ordinary and kind of nonchalant.
Were any police cars visible at the crime scene?
Yes.
And so there's yellow crime scene tape up?
Correct.
Okay. So when Officer Krautheim came over, did he talk to you and some other detectives?
He did.
And did he advise you about his interaction with Ms. Vallow and Tyler?
He didn't talk to me about their interaction. He just more identified who they were.
Okay.
And at that point, we had had some discussion about kind of additional roles that had just developed.
So at some time while you're sitting there and you're standing around talking with sergeants and whatnot, is that when you learned who you believe to be the shooter, Alex Cox, was?
Yes,
And at some time while you are again getting these updates, did you learn who the deceased male was inside the residence?
correct.
And who was that?
That was Charles Vallow.
During this time, did it become known to you the relationship between Lori Vallow and Alex Cox?
Correct. They were brother-sister.
And during this time, did you become aware of the relationship between Ms. Vallow and Charles Vallow?
Correct. Husband-wife.
After you, or I guess during the time when you were speaking with these officers, were you updated by Officer Krautheim about whether or not Lori Vallow knew her husband was dead?
No, I had talked to my sergeant actually about speaking with her specifically about doing what we refer to as a death notification.
Well, let me go back. So did you believe that Lori Vallow knew her husband was dead?
I did not.
You thought she had no idea?
I didn't think she knew because she wasn't there when I got there.
Had you been advised that by Officer Krautheim or his sergeant relating to information he had received from Alex Cox that she was not present?
I didn't believe that she was present at the time the incident occurred prior to me speaking with her.
Okay. And that was based upon information that you had obtained from briefings?
Correct.
Okay. Since you thought that Lori Vallow did not know her husband was deceased, what did you do?
So I had a brief discussion with my sergeant and we agreed that it would be the right thing to do a death notification to her. She is legally his wife. They are married. She would be his legal next of kin. She's standing basically in the crime scene. And I think professionally, it's in delaying letting someone know that their loved one is deceased isn't appropriate. So we made a decision at that point to contact her to do an actual death notification. So it was clear that he was deceased.
Okay. So because she's there at the scene, do you just walk up to her while she's standing right there in front of the car to notify her? How do you do that?
No, so her and Tylee were now seated within the care unit that I had mentioned, our CR 288. They have a van, and we utilize it a lot. So they were seated within that van. I had approached the van with my sergeant, and my intention was to try to get her to come out of the van because Tylee was in there with her, so I could have a discussion with her outside of the view of any children. When I made contact with her,
I will say I respect and deeply appreciate that they are trying to be professional, not knowing anything about Lori, wanted to be professional, wanted to do this out of range of the children, to spare them, seeing their parent break down. I'm just really touched by kind of all of the thought process that this detective went through to, approach this situation with dignity, or at least the situation she thought she was going into.
we ended up having the conversation with her in the van with Tylee.
So let me ask this. What was her demeanor when you see her in this van?
Pretty much the same as her demeanor before, not real emotional. She was pretty calm, didn't seem overly affected.
I think you had used nonchalant previously.
Yeah, it's a good word to describe it.
So how did that notification go down? Were you able to tell her what happened?
So opened the van. I made contact with her. I think at some point I asked her something to the effect if she would step out of the van to talk to me. And at that point she said that she already knew because she was there, which was kind of a surprise. I wasn't necessarily expecting that. And at that point I confirmed with her that he had died and he was deceased, and quickly kind of conferred with my sergeant away that at this point, her and Tylee are now witnesses to the event and they need to be interviewed, obviously.
So it's normal for detectives to have to make death notifications,
Yes,
and you have made death notifications in other cases.
unfortunately, yes.
And so in this case, you yourself was the one surprised to learn that you didn't have to give her a death notification.
I was.
Did her demeanor change at all when she's telling you that she was there and knew he was dead?
No.
So at this point, now that you know that it's not just a death notification, she now may have relevant information, what happens at that point?
I had made a request of her that we would like to obviously talk to her, and if I could transport them back to the police station. If possible, we'd like to do the interviews in a more contained environment, obviously one that we can record and one that's not in the middle of a crime scene. So I had asked if her and Tylee would come back to the police station with me, and I ultimately ended up driving them, both of them, back to the police station.
Okay. Is there a special area at the police station that you took them to?
I did. I took them to what's referred to as our FAC, which is our Family Advocacy Center.
What's the difference between the FAC and, maybe what people have seen on TV of just like the cold room with a table and two chairs?
So the Family Advocacy Center is a separate part of the police department. It actually has a separate entrance, and it's designed specifically for like victims of crime. We do forensic interviews of children there. There are not uniformed officers that work within that area. It's designed specifically for like victims of crime.
So this is the kind of room that Kat was in, if you remember the Chandler Halderson or Canabro, as Ricada fondly put it, that particular case. I am going to stop here. I do want to let you guys know that I have been watching out and looking out for any updates on the Diddy case. As far as I'm aware, we are still verdictless. But I will be putting out some videos later today. It looks like we have some preliminary information that's coming out from the NTSB about the Brooklyn Bridge crash, the crash of the, I believe, it's a schooner. It's not a power boat per se. It's one of the sailboats from Mexico. It looks like there is some preliminary investigative work that is being distributed, and looks like the things on the boat were a lot more in peril than maybe we first, understood. And then there is, unfortunately, a Lord Chippy update. It looks like cartels are having a turf war, and as you can imagine, it's cartels and it's not good. So that will definitely be a not safe for work one. I will also, as I said, for the rest of the day, be working on background information on the Stearns case. So when there is the hearing tomorrow at 9 a.m., I should have at least the background knowledge and, possibly a hangover, because I'm going to need a stiff drink for some of this monstrous stuff, if I'm honest with you. But thank you guys so much for sharing your day with me. We will finish up this witness. And I do believe that this includes the videotaped interview that both Tylee and Lori gave. It will be a special kind of heartbreaking to have some of the last recorded moments that we have in Tylee's life played out for us, and to watch her mother, who should be just sobbing at the reminder of her daughter, asking ridiculous, redonkulous questions of this detective, I have no doubt. But we will finish up day 5 and go into day 6 tomorrow, hopefully after some of the hearings. I know that there's also the Brian Koberger. So depending on how things work out tomorrow with hearings, hearing palooza, we might round this up on Thursday. But we should be able to do something tomorrow, I hope, as long as all the hearings kind of go. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm going to be sending you over to Recovery Attic. I believe that this is still the high school quadruple stabbing trial, I believe, or something to that effect. I am only able to keep up with so many cases, but he does a wonderful job, and he has all those buttons, which I don't think, with great power and great buttons comes great ability for Mo to cock up her stream. So I will need intensive help if I ever get a soundboard. That's all. Thank you guys so much. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, but have a sassy mouth and carry a can of bitch fire, because you never know when you're gonna run into a Lori. Princess voice, monster in the soul. Bye, you guys.